Okay, so you want to become a pharmacist. For decades, this was considered one of the safest bets in healthcare. No medical residency, no surgical risk. A stable Monday through Friday retail job at ACV's or Walgreens. And a starting salary north of $120,000 the moment you finish your degree. People always need their medications is the pitch, and for a long time it was true. Here's what that picture leaves out. And this is one of the sharpest reversals of fortune of any healthcare profession in recent memory. The number of pharmacy schools in the United States nearly doubled in the span of about 15 years, flooding the job market with graduates at the exact moment retail pharmacy employment started shrinking due to automation, consolidation, and mass store closures. The debt required to become a pharmacist has kept climbing even as the guaranteed six-figure job at the end of it has become considerably less guaranteed. Let's start with getting into pharmacy school, because the admissions process mirrors other healthcare professions closely. Many programs require the pharmacy college admission test, the PCA, and applicants typically spend $200 to $500 on prep materials. Though a growing number of schools have dropped the PCAT requirement entirely as applicant pools have shrunk, which is itself an early signal of the supply problem we're about to walk through. The application process runs through PharmCars, a centralized service charging its own processing fees on top of individual schools' supplemental fees, and total application costs for a competitive applicant typically run $1,000 to $2,000. Now let's talk about the Doctor of Pharmacy degree itself. The PharmD, which typically takes 4 years after a bachelor's degree, though a meaningful number of students enter through accelerated 0 to 6 programs straight out of high school. According to data, the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy tracks the total cost of attendance for a PharmD program, tuition fees and living expenses combined, runs approximately $150,000 to $250,000 depending on whether the school is public or private. And according to the AACP's own annual graduating student survey, average pharmacy school debt at graduation has climbed steadily and now sits around $170,000 to $180,000 plus dollars. A debt load that has kept rising even as, we'll get to this, the job market underneath it has gotten meaningfully worse. Here's the detail that used to be pharmacy's biggest selling point relative to medicine. Retail and community pharmacists are not required to complete a residency before practicing. Pass your licensing exams and you can begin working and earning immediately after graduation. But that advantage has been quietly eroding. As the retail job market has become saturated, hospital and clinical pharmacy positions, generally the more stable, better compensated segment of the field, have become dramatically more competitive, and a growing share of new graduates now pursue a 1 to 2 year postgraduate residency. A PG1 and sometimes PG2, essentially just to be competitive for those positions at all. Residency salaries run approximately $50,000 to $55,000 a year, similar to a medical resident's pay, except pharmacy residents already carry the full weight of standard loan repayment obligations, since, unlike medicine, there's no built-in deferment infrastructure, widely used across the profession for this training period. Before practicing anywhere, you need to pass the North American Pharmacist Licensure Examination, the NAPLEX, which costs approximately $575 to sit for, plus the Multi-State Pharmacy Jurisprudence Examination, the MPJE, which varies by state but typically runs $200 to $400. On top of individual state licensing application fees, licensing costs are modest compared to medicine or dentistry, genuinely one of the few places this profession is cheaper. If you're finding this breakdown useful, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps more people find videos like this one. Now let's talk about the core problem. The one that's reshaped this entire profession over the past decade. Starting in the early 2000s, pharmacy was widely marketed as a can't-miss career, a guaranteed six-figure salary with a manageable 4-year graduate program and no residency requirement. Enrollment surged, and schools responded to that demand. The number of accredited PharmD programs in the United States grew from roughly 90 in the early 2000s to well over 140 by the late 2010s, and total pharmacy school graduates nearly doubled over that same window. That supply expansion collided directly with a shrinking demand curve on the other side. Major retail chains, CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid among them, have closed hundreds, and in some cases, thousands of stores over the past several years as retail pharmacy margins compressed under pressure from insurance reimbursement cuts and heavy competition. From mail-order and central-fill automated pharmacies, large-scale facilities that use robotics to fill routine prescriptions at massive volume with a fraction of the on-site pharmacist labor a traditional retail location requires. Rite Aid itself filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2023, closing several hundred stores as part of its restructuring, a well-documented, publicly reported case that illustrates the broader retail pharmacy business model under genuine financial strain that flows directly downstream into fewer available pharmacist positions. The result of more graduates chasing fewer jobs is exactly what basic economics predicts. According to workforce data, multiple pharmacy organizations have tracked. Real inflation-adjusted pharmacist wages have stagnated or declined since roughly the mid-2010s. Even as the debt required to enter the profession kept climbing every single year, a meaningful share of recent graduates report difficulty finding full-time positions at all, instead working as floater pharmacists, piecing together part-time shifts across multiple store locations without the benefits, scheduling stability or guaranteed hours a full-time position would provide. Applicant pools to pharmacy schools have themselves declined sharply as word of this reversal has spread, and a number of programs have responded by shrinking class sizes or closing entirely, a self-correcting mechanism that structurally takes years to fully rebalance the market, meaning students entering the pipeline today are still graduating into conditions shaped by the oversupply years before them. Working conditions inside retail pharmacy have become a documented part of this story as well. Not just a job availability story. Understaffing relative to prescription volume, combined with corporate productivity metrics, tracking prescription filling speed, and immunization quotas per shift, has driven visible pharmacist dissatisfaction. Well publicized enough that pharmacists at major chains including CVS and Walgreens organized coordinated walkouts and seekouts in 2023 to protest working conditions. Events covered extensively by national news outlets. It was a striking moment for a profession that a decade earlier had been marketed almost exclusively on the promise of stability and predictable hours. Let's put two outcomes side by side, because the path you take within this profession changes the math significantly, arguably more than in any other career we've covered on this channel, because the baseline job market itself has shifted so much. Scenario 1, the realistic strong outcome. You graduate with $175,000 in debt and, understanding the retail saturation problem going in, pursue a 1-year PGY1 hospital residency at $52,000 a year, followed by a PG2 specialty residency in a high-demand clinical area like oncology or critical care pharmacy. Another year at a similar salary, 2 years of reduced income, but you emerge as a board-certified clinical specialist competing for a genuinely smaller, more stable pool of hospital positions, landing a clinical pharmacist role at $135,000. Annually, with strong job security and defined hours, your total time to full learning stretched 2 extra years beyond a standard retail path. But by your early 30s, you're in a stable, well-compensated, non-saturated segment of the profession. Scenario 2, the realistic difficult outcome. You graduate with $180,000 in debt. Skip residency entirely, the traditional retail path, and enter a job market where full-time retail positions in your metro area are genuinely scarce. You spend your first 18 months working as a floater across 3 different pharmacy locations, cobbling together 30 to 35 hours a week without full benefits, earning an effective annual income closer to $75,000, rather than the $120,000 plus figure you budgeted your entire financial plan around during school. Standard loan payments on $180,000 run approximately $2,000 a month, a payment that assumed the salary you were told to expect, not the one the market actually delivered. Same degree, same license. The only variable that changed was how saturated the specific segment of the job market you entered happened to be by the time you graduated into it. The scale of this profession remains large, even amid the disruption. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are approximately 330,000 practicing pharmacists in the United States, and prescription drug volume nationally continues rising as the population ages, which means the underlying demand for medication itself hasn't gone away. What's changed is how that demand gets fulfilled, increasingly through automation, mail order, and centralized fill centers that require far less pharmacist labor per prescription than the traditional retail countermodel this profession was built around. That's not a struggling industry in terms of prescription volume. It's a profession where the labor market underneath a once reliable career promise shifted structurally within a single generation, catching a large cohort of graduates in between the old promise and the new reality, carrying record debt levels into a job market that, for a meaningful share of them, simply doesn't resemble the one they were sold when they enrolled. If you want to go deeper into how careers and workforce shifts like this actually get modeled and evaluated, there's a detailed guide linked in the description and pinned in the first comment. It walks through the frameworks behind everything in this video. Worth checking out. Behind the white coat and the 6-figure headline, Number is a profession that expanded its supply pipeline faster than its job market could absorb it, leaving a generation of graduates holding some of the highest debt loads in healthcare against some of the least certain employment outcomes. The prescriptions are still being filled. The question this profession is still working through is who's filling them, a pharmacist behind the counter or a robot in a warehouse 2 states away. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It genuinely helps this channel keep growing.